if the Guardians are a 500 team at the deadline, do you personally want them to buy or sell? And in fairness, that conversation becomes incredibly rudimentary because most teams no longer think in just purely buyers or sellers. The Guardians actually have been one of the teams out there in front of most teams that they don't necessarily, unless they're incredibly good or incredibly awful, if they're middle of the pack, they're down to clown with just about anything. But they are 500. They're 35-35 after 70 games. Here's where I think a lot of people are ready to have the Clase conversation. And I saw it over the weekend of, you know what? Clase to LA for this player. Clase here for this player and this player.
Oh, yeah. LA, Chicago, Philly was brought up in a couple different spots. There's a couple different teams that make sense.
Now, I just have come to a point where me as a fan, because of the way baseball operates, and I'm going to scream this into the wind. It doesn't matter because nobody's going to listen to it. You believe what you believe on this matter. But the reality is baseball is set against organizations like the Cleveland Guardians. It's why Paul Skeens has been I think he's just making his 1-year anniversary. And the national media is already asking, should the Pirates trade Paul Skeens? Because they could get a tsunami. It's the dumbest idea in the world. It's the best thing they've had since young Andrew McCutchen and young Neil Walker. And the national media is already trying to trade him.
Yeah, well, they know 6 years from now they're not going to be able to pay him as the part of that.
But the whole thing's fugazi, right? But my response was, okay, the system's broken. I have to root more for the emblem than I do any specific name. And I learned that after watching Tomey, Albert, Kenny Lofton twice, Matt Williams force his way out. I've just watched so many of my favorite baseball players leave that I don't have the connection the same way as when we've tried to trade Baker or when we've tried to trade Miles or when we've thought about moving on from Nick Chubb, because this is just the ecosystem that I'm used to. I was comfortable last offseason talking about Clase. And not because of the postseason stuff. It's just he's under an insane amount of control. He's got, I think, 2 more years after this and 2 option years, or 1 more year after this and 2 option years, which are incredibly affordable.
It was initially a 5-year deal when he signed it, 520 for 25.
So his kind of control, you just can't really get for elite level closer. So if that meant you could get an elite level deal for Clase, I was already down to clown. That hasn't really changed for me. Like, I don't view trading Clase as this, they're hitting the rebuild. It's a closer, and you could get a max for him. So as long as that happens, as long as this isn't what people perceive the Devers deal to be for Boston, who the hell do I care?
Yeah, I have a hard time trying to figure it out what exactly the value is in return. And so, it's always tough when you talk relievers and especially closers. It's a very hard thing. Now, in years past, obviously, Guardians got Andrew Miller. Cubs traded for Aroldis Chapman. You've seen big-time blockbuster moves made at the deadline for those type of guys because it matters so much. But it's really hard in today's baseball to figure out exactly what the return would be for the Guardians if they traded Clase off. But what I do know is that you have enough pieces to make up for it.
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe that's the other part of this. Like, guys, I think Cade Smith would be a closer on most teams in baseball. And not like
so many teams in baseball. So many teams. More than half the league would have him as their closer.
Like, I don't think it's asinine to say he's better than 20 other closers in baseball at the very least. And I don't want to go through them because that's awful radio. But the point is, and that's not just him. There's always going to be, they're not going to be Clase level. This is where he is a unicorn, and he is distinctly great at the thing that he does, and he still is, no matter the struggles he had at the beginning of the year, what he had this weekend. He's an elite closer. That's just you. If you've got one and they're controllable, that's a really valuable resource you can have. I don't think the conversation stops there, though.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting because there's a couple teams this year that has tried to basically do what the Guardians did last year. The Astros are one of them right now. Astros are 10 games over 500. Nick, they don't have a very good offense, all things considered. Their starting pitching is just fine, but they have a dominant bullpen. Their bullpen's fantastic. And so, when you look at it, it's like, well, how are they winning all these games? It's that way. Same thing the Guardians did last year. Well, the Guardians aren't winning games based off their bullpen alone right now. The bullpen is good. I'm not saying that's a bad bullpen, but they're not winning games based off of that. And so if you can get Clase and keep that same level of production out of your pen, because I don't know that it's getting much better than what they currently are, you're not really losing much in return because you do have enough guys there.
And listen, if they keep him, well, guys, I'm going to be very happy that Emmanuel Clase is here.
Yeah, like I won't be crushed if he's here.
I don't want to say you're in a no-lose situation, but you're in a spot where you can afford to trade him if you can actually – listen, they can't develop hitters. Let's just have the conversation.
Well, but think about the teams that are going for it, though. Like, I mean, again, the Cubs are involved for a reason. The Phillies are involved for a reason. The Dodgers are involved for a reason. That all need these closers that if you traded Clase and put him on that team, like we're talking about the bounty that you used to be able to get for these guys.
But let's get back to that. I want to get back to this for a second because you're right on what you just said. But, guys, they can't do it. They're trying to do with bats what they've done with arms, which is you get a guy that's got a specific hit trait, and he is almost major league ready, but he's an average ass build dude, sometimes a short king. And you're trying to eke, can we get him from 10 home runs to 20 home runs? It's this bunk. It doesn't work. They have not successfully, and I'm not trying to kill him. I'm just trying to be honest.
No, that's not what they do.
Well, no, they're
not good at it.
And here's the thing. They haven't responded well either. Like they keep trying to tweak the formula. The formula sucks no matter what it is. Or we're going to try and find a guy like Chase DeLauder, an insane hitter. Can't stay healthy. We can't call him up because he can't stay healthy. So the only way you're getting guys to walk in that door is if you do what you did with Bartolo Colon and trade maybe the best trade in baseball history for 3 guys, all of whom are all-star level or better in their career. 2 of the 3 who legitimately, if they had just been a little healthier, held on for a little longer, would have been Hall of Fame players in Cliff Lee and Grady Sizemore. And by the way, not just that. It's the same thing as you got Cookie Carrasco for Cliff Lee. You got Michael Brantley for CeCe. The difference here is it should be a bountiful return up front. The only way to fix this lineup, though, is if you make really, really tough, damn near impossible decisions. And that's why it's not just about Clase. None of us want to have this conversation. I sure as hell. There's 2 guys in the last decade, and it's not Frankie. There's 2 guys that I've said, that's a Cleveland Indian, that's a Cleveland Guardian. Please don't trade them. Jose was one, and I could have rationalized it. If they had made, I think it was Toronto or San Diego 3 years ago, going into that magical 2022 season. I could have rationalized it. I would have dealt with it. I would have lived with it because that's what you do. But it would have broke my heart on some level. Kwan is right there. And yet, we're at the point where it's time for Kwan to either sign an extension or it's time to say, well, we need to rebuild this offense. A great leadoff hitter, as great as that is, doesn't mean as much to you if you can't get the guys across the board, if you can't develop power hitters.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I'll trade Stephen Kwan for a ridiculous amount of value that probably lends me in getting at least one young power bat.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, he's the American League's version of a Rise. I mean, it's just the value's there, obviously. He's going to net $100 million deal. Like, are you comfortable paying Stephen Kwan $100 million? No. Because the Guardians, you only get to do that a couple times.
Well, and here's the other thing. Well, okay, I should say I am comfortable paying him, but I understand the risk is if that hit tool looks anywhere close to what it looked like in his second year. And again, he has not looked like that since. He was elite as a rookie. He was elite last year, and he has been elite this year when healthy enough to play. So there's no doubt, like that one tool that he has. And well, I don't want to say one tool because he's also an elite defender in left field. But yeah, I'm comfortable paying it. But I also understand if he becomes a 275 hitter instead of a 300 hitter, yeah, it's going to be a different version and a different version of the Jimenez problem.
It's just a different skill set that you just don't see in baseball often these days. They just don't. They don't come up being like Stephen Kwan, like a Rise. It's not a thing that happens anymore. And so it's different. I think it would work in so many different teams, what he's able to do. I think it works for this team in some degree, but the team does need more pop. Now, are you talking, if you're trading Kwan, are you talking for a bunch of prospects or are you talking for a bunch of proven baseball ready player, like Major League Baseball player ready players? Because you kind of mentioned something that I think is important in this convo, and we can talk about this for Clase too. They can't develop guys when it comes to offense. They can't. They just the only guys that they actually get to end up working are guys that they had nothing to do with when it comes to actually developing, and we're always going to be able to hit anyway. So are we trading for major league ready players, or are we doing the thing where you're trading for a bunch of prospects that ultimately aren't going to turn into anything from an offensive side of the plate anyway?
I worry about Clase or Kwan if you trade them. I worry that they're going to try and do the Padres deal again, where it was like Clevenger and there's one or two other players going out there and you got like 6 prospects back. And by the way, Naylor was far and away the better of all your prospects. But, like, Hedges was just a dude.
Wasn't that the Mejia deal, too?
No, Mejia was for Franmil.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Ooh, man, that one bit me. I thought Franmil.
Yeah, but people loved Mejia.
Yeah. I love Franmil until the second season in Cleveland.
Yeah.
But that would be the wrong tactic. I think you're at a point where I think it's about quality of prospect, not quantity. And I think for either guy, you should be able to get both. And listen, we're not going to be the show that comes out. There will absolutely be a show that comes out here and to try and prove their baseball knowledge is going to tell you they should trade Clase. They should trade Stephen Kwan. There is not an ounce, I think, in either of our bodies that want them to trade either player. In my ideal world,
no,
you'd retain great players. And you might group a couple of them together, go on like a little 5 to 7 year run like the Dodgers have done for like 12 years now. But that's not the world we live in. So I think more what I'm saying is not you have to trade them, but neither of those guys can be untouchable if you go into this deadline and you look at this and go, hey, this is a seller's market. No one's selling. We would be really one of the 3 or 4 teams that might have a hitter like Kwan. Actually, I think that one's tougher to find. An elite leadoff hitter that does what he does in left field. That's
doesn't
hard
exist
to find
anymore. Yeah.
So, but we're the only that can put that guy out there and Clase out there, and you start talking about supply and demand. I can understand why that might be the best way to go, but I just think we've reached a point where we are with this team, where those guys are in their career. There are no untouchables. The only untouchable is Hosey because he's got a no movement clause. But everybody else, all right. Yeah, we're open for business in whatever way gets us tangibly closer to being the team that can get back to the ALCS. And so nobody should be safe, right?
Yeah, it's an odd part of the season because we're still enough weeks away where they could turn this thing around. Like, part of the depressing part about this last week is it's like, watch baseball. You guys know how this goes. 162 games. You have your ups and your downs. But we're talking complete sell-off. We're talking about getting rid of all these guys. It's because ultimately you just don't believe enough in the offense.
Well, and here's the thing, guys. And again, I'm not trying to sell anybody on the idea. I'm just trying to normalize that these are the conversations they have to have.
Yeah, I guess I'm just really curious. Is it going to be major league ready players, or is it going to be a bunch of prospects? Like,
I need guys who are ready to step up.
That's what I need too.
Who 2026 might be the year.
But it's
them,
also because I've developed just so much distrust in this front office and in the farm system to be able to get these offensive guys up and ready to actually play and be able to slug. We've just seen so many guys in the previous 2 or 3 years. They don't know what they're doing when it comes to developing hitters. They got pitchers down. They know what they've known for years what to do with pitchers. They don't know what they're doing with hitters.